Hello everyone, I'm Grandmaster Dennis Borosh, and today we're going to talk about an unfortunate incident that happened not long ago at the Skilling Open, where Magnus Carlsen, in a winning position, as you can see on the board, has blundered his queen instead of playing a move that most likely would have led to a decisive advantage. And that kind of leads to the topic of the day, and that is online chess etiquette and the topic of takebacks. So, whenever you play online, you sort of play someone who you've never seen or maybe never known. So, there are some proper etiquette and ways that you can play. By the way, both players, Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen, played and acted correctly. There was no animosity between the two players. In fact, they just went on with their lives after this unfortunate mouse slip. However, if you are just starting out playing and learning chess, make sure whenever you lose or you win a game, in both cases, feel free to send the message good game or just use GG if that's okay for the program, as it works on Leeches, and I do believe it works on chess.com as well. Chess24, I'm not sure, but definitely in each and every server you play on, wishing good game and saying well played is something that should become a tradition. So if you haven't done before, do it. It's very good and it gives a good atmosphere for the whole chess online community. So that's one of the things that I want to talk about. And the other thing is that of flagging. So you can and it is okay to flag, that is part of the game. Time as a weapon, I've seen that by John Bartholomew, and I do recommend his ideas on that. However, if there is limited material and the position is drawn, so you have two rooks each and nothing special going on in the position, accepting a draw is the right way to go. Now, if you're playing bullet, meaning 1 minute each, that is obviously not a prerequisite, but if you have 2 minutes each and the position has no hopes of winning for anybody, it is more acceptable to agree to a draw than not. By the way, playing on, in any case, shouldn't really be penalized even if they do. So, playing on time is frowned upon if the position is objectively drawn. But if any position, if you're lost, if you're winning, in any other case, hey, you came to play chess. And that is how it should be. By the way, that is all I want to say about this. So let's take a look at this game. What happened and how did we get here? So let's start from the beginning. Now Nepomniachtchi plays e4, that is his main weapon, and e5 wasn't a big surprise, as Carlsen always responds with e5 in high-stake cases. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, knight e7, knight c3. Now knight c3 is a strange move for the onlooker, because usually you see c3 and d4 building the center. However, in this specific case, knight c3 is stronger because if black would play g6, which was probably Carlsen's original idea, then there would go d4, e takes d4, and knight d5. And this might seem very familiar to you because you've seen my Belgrade Gambit video. And if you haven't, do check it out. I will post it down the description. So it is one of those typical ideas, as these pieces on e7 and c6 are misplaced. Black is going to suffer after the bishop shows up to g5, not to mention there is a mate in one threat. By the way, just to remind you that ideas of the Belgrade Gambit can pop up in different openings, let me show you what could happen in case of an English. c4, e5, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, g6, d4, e takes d4, knight d5. And seemingly this is very, very normal, but because black was wasting too much time, white is going to go for an attack. By the way, this is the famous Andreykin-Karyakin game. Here, there is this beautiful move of knight takes d4. Now black cannot take that knight, because in that case there's bishop takes e7, and you lose the queen. And if you take it with the bishop, as happened, there's queen takes d4, which is actually checkmating. If you capture, knight f6 check, king f8, bishop h6, checkmate. And if after bishop d4, queen d4, as it happened in the game, castles, knight f6 happened in the game between Andreykin and Karyakin, king g7, knight g4 check, knight takes d4, bishop f6, and this is quite a gorgeous checkmate by Andreykin, but Karyakin obviously resigned earlier. So that is just a reason, one sole reason you should familiarize yourself with typical gambit ideas, such as the Belgrade gambit, as this is one of the key concepts that Nepomniachtchi followed and got an advantage. So back to our position, knight c3. Here, Carlsen was forced to play knight g6 to avoid this d4, e takes, knight d5 ideas. d4, a very strong move by Nepomniachtchi. Black's pieces are a little bit scattered, so he immediately strikes in the center. E takes, knight takes d4, bishop c5, bishop e3, keeping everything under control. Bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, queen g5. Trying to be aggressive, otherwise white castles and will have too much of a space advantage. g3, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, knight e5. So black is trying to exchange as many pieces as possible, because if white runs out of pieces, there's just not enough material left to win the position. Bishop e2, and this is a strong move, but incidentally, I do feel bishop e2 is kind of the direction that actually made Nepomniachtchi's position worse. However, at the moment, it is still the best. Knight c6, queen c4. A very nice move, eyeing this pawn on c7 and fixing this knight on c6. d6, knight d5. Typical Nepomniachtchi, going forward, playing aggressively. Queen d8, queen c3, eyeing these pawns. Castles, long castles, rook e8, f3. And this move I do like by Nepomniachtchi. He's just getting ready to roll with these pawns, but Carlsen not really having any counterplay on the queen side. Bishop e6, as we talked about before, every exchange is a relief for the reigning world champion as he lacks space. Bishop b5, again playing against Carlsen's plans, and also pinning down that knight. Bishop d7, h4. Now as black was forced back to defensive, he starts his attack with h4, g4, a6, and here comes the big mistake. So far, Nepomniachtchi played absolutely the best moves, defending when he had to and being aggressive when he should be. And here he decides to go bishop a4, but even though it looks like the correct solution, it is actually one step in the wrong direction instead. Probably the move bishop e2 would have been better, as black is not quite ready to throw these pawns, and these pawns are actually very close to succeed. Excuse me. But bishop a4, even though logical, leaves this bishop as a target. b5, bishop b3, a5. Now the a pawn is running down, and suddenly black has real threats. a3, b4. And now black is back in the game, as we have this classical opposite side castling position. It's not the pawn quantity that counts, it's the quality of pieces. AB, AB, knight b4, takes, bishop e6. Again, a very strong move, just neutralizing white's strong bishop. Bishop takes e6, rook e6, queen c3, h5. And I really like this move, just making sure nothing funny happens, and it also kind of hampers white's attack on the king side. b3, rook g6, pressing against that pawn, f4, rook a6, king b2, Rook e6, going for the target and looking for queen a3 ideas. Now, even here, Nepomniachtchi is better, but queen c4 is probably the moment he is losing control. Here, if he would have gone rook e1, defending the e4 pawn, then white would have been clearly better. Queen c4 was played, but after queen f6 check, suddenly white has to be very careful. You can't even go back, because there's this rook a2 check, and I collect your lady on c3. c3, rook a8. And even though white has an extra pawn, this king is extremely weak on b2. Meanwhile, black has lots and lots of plans to target those pawns on e4 and b3 as well. Rook e1, queen e7, rook d5, desperately plugging the holes in the position, but that ain't gonna work. c6, which is a very strong move, just saying, hey, you can take that pawn, but if you do, I come on in with my lady, and there be very, very many nasty threats, and it's quite difficult to defend in that case. So rook d4 was played instead, but d5, as Carlsen is insisting on opening up files for the rooks and the queen. Queen e2, queen a3 check, king c2, queen a2, king d3, queen takes b3, queen c2, and this is the moment when tragedy struck for Magnus Carlsen. He probably wanted to play queen b5 or queen b6, but I would assume it was queen b5 because otherwise it's difficult to do the decisive slip of queen b4. Now, as he played queen b4, after some agonizing, he resigned, which is completely understandable, but is somewhat sad as he had the game under control. Now, if he would have managed to play queen b5, in this case, there's king e3, rook a3, king f2, queen a5, and black just has too many threats. There is this threat to the queen and the king, so rook a2 is threatened, and white has to deal with that. Otherwise, white is just going to lose pawns with an attack still brewing against this king on f2. But as it turns out, queen b4 was played, and Carlsen had to resign. But that really boils down and comes back to the topic of takebacks. Now, Carlsen has turned his game around, was in the back foot for quite a while, but then he managed to outplay his esteemed opponent, and instead he just lost the game because of a mouse slip. Now, does that happen? Yes, it does. Can we fix this issue online? I think we should. Now, some people might not agree with me, but I do think this is quite similar to the scenario that we had in tennis. Before there were no Hawkeye, you couldn't challenge a point when you felt that, in fact, that ball that they called out was in. Now, these points could have changed a whole career. Now, online chess, especially on this high level, there are huge prize sums going around, and one mistake can cost you the game. So what to do? I do propose that I think we should have takebacks. But you may ask, so the player can just have a takeback and that's it? No, of course not. Just like in the way it was done in tennis, you can request a takeback through the arbiter, and the arbiter will decide if he grants the takeback or not. Now, this mostly would be a case for these scenarios where clearly the move was not intended to be played. Queen b4 wouldn't have been a likely move. Obviously, people make mistakes. However, crude mistakes like this, I don't think helps the whole integrity of these events. The Skilling Open, a great project, but I do think they should consider thinking and adding the takeback option, and the arbiter should decide whether that is a good cause, should be accepted or not. It might actually be part of online chess culture, and in fact, it already is part of some servers. So what do you think? Do you think there should be no takebacks, more takebacks? Or if you have your own ideas, do let me know in the chat below. Please comment and subscribe if you like this video. Thank you for watching. I was Grandmaster Dennis Borosh. Bye bye.